days. Toughest part about the business, obviously, because a lot of guys put a lot of work into, and we like all these guys, but just unfortunately can't keep everybody. So we try to do the best we can with the 53 and then with the practice squad. A lot of moving parts, obviously. I would say this, it's the roster, just like all other 32 teams, is very fluid, especially the first, week or two. So it's probably not going to look like the same as it does right now in a couple days or even going into week one. So, but again, appreciate all those guys and some tough conversations, but feel good about where we're at right now. And we're going to get on the grass and have a good, fast, competitive, spirited practice. What do we got?
Is there such a thing as a guy making a late push, or is that more of immediate creation, like, a Bam night, for example, with that big touchdown?
Probably immediate creation. And why I say that, Paul, is, we look at every day is evaluated,
What did Bam show you then that give you the confidence to put him on the 53?
Yeah, throughout the course of training camp, he does what he's coached to do. He's a good runner. I like where he's at on fourth down. So his role is, kind of still being defined as we speak. Putting everybody together and things like that. But he did a lot of good things. We felt really good about keeping him.
When you talk about the fluidity of the roster, but also the fluidity of the roles, just how much do you think that some of these guys that were potentially on the bubble or on the fringe spots, how are their roles starting to be defined? Because the guys who are going to be starting, obviously the first teams and second teams, but how does every other player's role start to get defined?
Yeah, I tell them. So we have a team meeting that we kind of define all roles as we sit here today, just so everybody's on the same page. And that meeting, not everybody loves their role when I give it to them. They might want a little bit bigger role, or they might see it a little bit different way. But we have those discussions just to make sure we're all in alignment. And then they also know that roles change quickly, and through the course of a week, through the course of a game, or every day it can change. It can change quick for a lot of different factors. So just got to be ready for your opportunities and ready to go.
We've asked you about P.J. Mustipher because he's played a lot in the preseason games. As someone who was signed to the practice squad this time last year and now makes the initial 53, where did you see the biggest jump or most consistency in his game?
Yeah, I think the biggest jump when we left here in January, we had a good conversation of what it looks like for him, what he needs, physically what he needed to do. And he's a guy that put a lot into that. He took that to heart, and I wanted him to change his body comp a little bit, and he worked with Evan and Shea and the performance staff every day. He was a guy that I know we talked about on July 4th, but he really got himself in better shape. His body comp's better. And then from a technical standpoint, he really developed, consistent technique, and he played really good football, so that's a credit to him and Debo and everybody, with performance psych. He put a lot into that bucket, and he got better at that. So really happy for him, but he earned his spot. There's no doubt.
With Josh Fryer, what have you seen, and was there a point at which he really started to catch your eye?
Probably OTAs. Honestly, even without pads, just from mentally what we asked those guys to do, it was never too big for him. He always kind of was. He never really got sped up with pre-snap rules and assignments, things like that. And then he goes out and blocks his guy, so that's valuable. And the other thing about Josh is he can play a bunch of spots, so that's also valuable as well. But I'm glad we have him here. He's done a really good job.
With Will passing and physical and being activated, what's the next steps for him?
Yeah, he was. He's getting close to being ready to start going to practice on the grass, things like that. He's doing a really good job with his return to play. He's getting a little bit better every day. Mentally, he's basically caught up because we did change a couple things that he had to kind of learn, a little bit new for him. But we'll take it one day at a time. With that one, you kind of got to forecast a little bit when you think he's going to be ready to practice, when you think he's going to be ready to play, what makes the most sense with him, with a guy like that. And, because our health deal, they're all different, but there's sometimes you got to have a little bit of, I don't want to say forecasting, but where is he at right now? Where can he be in a week or 2 weeks or 4 weeks? And then you make the decision. But he's a guy that's played a lot of ball for us, a lot of, really good winning football for us, and glad we have him, on the 53 right now.
How much do you kind of watch the waiver wire over the next couple of days, and you can sweat it out, hoping to get some guys back here that aren't currently?
Monty and his staff do a lot of that. I get lists. We were watching guys last night. We're watching guys today. Monty kind of streamlines that for the coaches, which I appreciate. But yeah, you watch it every day.
You had talked about looking for that consistency for Zay Weaver, and obviously he made the 53 for now. Like, did you see enough of that? Where you're like, okay, he's trending in the right direction to give you the consistency?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
With Walter starting on the pup, where's his head at, and how close was he maybe to coming up?
I don't know how close. His head's in the right spot. He comes in here and controls the controllables. He's getting better every day. There's a progression that he's on pace hitting. I know he wants to play football, but understands that he has to get himself ready to play football. So that's the most important thing for him. But Debo keeps him extra a lot, just to make sure he's mentally caught up. But there's going to be a learning curve with him because he's missed a lot of ball here now. But he's taking it one day at a time, and his attitude is right. I know he's a little bit down, but he's positive and attacking his recovery and rehab. He's doing a good job.
When you're trying to create the perfect 17 to put on the practice squad, what are the things you're looking at?
Well, from a practice standpoint, the first thing, numbers, how it relates to what numbers we have at that position. From the next standpoint to me is who can get elevated and what role would they have on game day. What roles could they take over on game day? And then probably the last thing for us where we're at is development. So if we think a guy's just not quite ready, but we want to work with them and see where it can go, we try to, you balance those three buckets, I guess, of how you kind of compose the practice squad.
I know you'd like to get a lot of the guys you cut back from on the practice squad, maybe somewhere player 54 or 55, and there's really no easy decisions when it comes to assembling this roster, but can you talk about maybe just how close a lot of those decisions were and maybe like the fine margins between making it and not making it?
Very, very, Donnie. I mean, really close with a lot of guys, But that's what happens when you get a lot of player development, and we're pretty healthy, so guys are ready to go, and they developed, and they made plays for you, and they were, chipping away, competing for their roles. There's a lot of competition this year for those spots, And like I said, that's what makes it tough, because you wish you could kind of keep them all, but you just can't, You could see guys that, we had to let go. You could see where kind of their role would have been, and it was good, But how we kind of put it together, we thought this was the best thing for the team and the best 53 as we sit here today.
As a coach now, this is the hard, one of the hardest days that you have, but now is it nice that you can focus on knowing who you have and go forward?
Yeah, but there's again, like I said, there's some fluidity still to happen, I think these next 2 days I'm concentrated, on some of the things that we got to, tie up, some loose ends that we got to tie up to make sure we're good to go. I'm concerned about practice today. I want to have a good, clean practice today. We're going to practice today and tomorrow. And then Monday, I think some of the dust should settle, and then start concentrating on. We'll have bonus Monday, and we'll start preparing for New Orleans.
Will you guys do captains next week?
Yeah. I'm going to have them vote tomorrow. They don't know that.
Real quick on Xavier Thomas, just from year one to year two, of everything you sort of tasked him with, you obviously saw enough. He's on the roster. Do you check a lot of those boxes? And he obviously played a ton against the Raiders.
Mm-hmm.
Was that pretty crucial? crucial.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. Well, again, full body of work. Yeah, I mean, he's improved his game. He's improved on fourth down as well, and he's a guy that we feel good about. That's going to keep improving. Like, I don't think he's anywhere near his ceiling. But he did a lot this offseason to improve himself as a player. Came back, showed up, and he works hard with Matt, Feeney, and that's a different room. It looks a little bit different than it has his first year, obviously. But he's excited about continuing to get better and get ready to play.
I know you talked about Weaver a second ago. How has his development enabled him to work a spot?
Well, he's shown that he can handle multiple spots, which that was a big thing for me. If you're in that slot, kind of that 4 or 5 slot, however you want to call it, you got to be able to play both spots. What he can do on fourth down, which I feel good what he can do on fourth down. And he has an element of, he's fast. He's a fast guy, and those guys don't grow on trees. So he can get open and catch, and he can run by you. So I like that part of his game. So he's the moment's never too big for him. He's never wide-eyed. He goes out there, competes, and he can win.
Coach, thank you.
Okay, thank you guys.